so much of what this project is of cultivating culture is to understand and define the history that comes with policy. Because tribal food sovereignty isn't something we just invented today. It's been a long lasting effort, and those resolutions going back into, back in the 40s, excuse me, have been paramount to where we are today. And it's always important for us to understand, who came before us so we can understand how to go forward to now. I want to ask you, what were some of the memories you've had with family around the kitchen table? Can you share with any of those personal memories you can think of?
Oh, watching relatives, in some ways it's sad. But I remember being young and gardens feeling like they were multi-million acre farms. They were so big, and I picked tomatoes until couldn't stand tomatoes for a while. But having that collective area where maybe I remember my uncle being out there all the time, and by extension, you'd see others come in, but that food went to everybody. So just having that kind of, just conversations with my brothers the other day. We talked about how much we miss some of the canning and different things, and it could have been. It doesn't matter what the plant vegetable was. They were able to grow their own, take care of their own. It didn't matter if they had money; they were able to do those kind of things to have for others, and different kind of subsistence. And then we know that we still have Native communities that rely or dependent on subsistence farming and hunting and those kind of things. But it's I'm glad to see that there's a resurgence in trying to get that back. Because in our family, it kind of went away to that kind of level.
Levi, that's you. When you started this and when you got this going, you talked to me about how it was important for you to see healthy eating options for people.
Yes.
And from the time to where you've gone to in your life, how have you seen and understood the transition of Indigenous food sovereignty from unhealthy eating options to where now we're in our spaces where we're utilizing our own natural resources, like land management, water management, also speaking healthy, good food? What have you viewed them?
Well, I know, and as Larry was talking, I remember my grandfather, Levi White Pigeon, always had a good fresh tomato.
Yeah.
And it does speak to the fact that I think we need to eat more healthy as Native people, stay off the potato chips and all that stuff that leads to obesity and sugar diabetes. And I think that's why I'm excited about this project. And we really want to get back into pointing out good eating habits for Native people as our ancestors did. And what I've been really pleasantly surprised, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. People are already doing a lot. Shaun and I just get to report on some of the great things that are happening with the return of the buffalo, the salmon runs, and all that. This is pretty exciting, and that's why we're happy about this project.
Yeah, and, it's beyond the resolution process. NCAI was a founding member with the Native Farm Bill Coalition, and those areas that are being addressed there as well. But yeah, it could take on a lot of, food sovereignty in and of itself could be growing, but it's also identifying those food deserts that many Native communities are plagued with. And my tribe did that when I was chairman during COVID. We the only real grocery store for an hour and a half distance was closing down, and we stepped in and bought it, renovated it, and dealt with all the issues that were complaints from others. Old foods, or past their date foods that were being sold. We updated it and really tried to make a difference, not only for our family, but there's another tribe that's close by, and they were able to take advantage of that as well, and really made a difference for our community.
I think that one of the blessings of COVID, and we know it was really hard on us, but some of the tribes really started seeing things, saying they can't be so reliant on either Washington or even on the food systems as we knew them to be. Because I've heard like in Oklahoma, there are now 3 or 4 tribes that have meat processing plants, and we just experienced it with the SNAP program being interrupted. That tribes, and Shaun and I did a lot of reporting on this. They seem to be able to step up. That does not negate, and I like to say it this way, does not negate the federal trust and freedom responsibilities the U.S. government has. And tell me what NCAI did during the SNAP crisis.
Well, we tried to, elevate the issue and the understanding that our tribes were struggling, and working with CTS and elevate that, trying to bring those stories that our tribes were facing. We had stories where meetings, tribal leaders weren't at meetings because they said, no, we have to stay home because we're having a special vote on reallocating tribal finances to help offset these losses from the SNAP program. It really, made tribes kind of rob Peter to pay Paul. And, there was a definitive effect. And if you're a tribe that's fortunate enough to have a diversified economy and that kind of extra money, it's still a difficult decision, still something you're not planning for. But compared that to, a tribe that doesn't have that kind of resources, you're talking about real impact and people starving through no fault of their own. We're that old saying, we're the canary in the mine, and how that impacts our elders and our youngest and our weakest at first. It's just not something that we should be in a position to do. So when we look at the impact of the federal shutdown and the discretionary funding that much of Indian country is part of versus mandatory advance appropriations like IHS is, and seeing what the difference is from a healthcare side that has those appropriations that, and there's absolutely no difference in why Indian Health Service has advanced appropriations and BIA, BIE, and these kind of other funding aren't advanced and mandatory as well. It all stems from the same basic tenet, and that's tribal sovereignty and the trust and freedom responsibility that the United States has to our tribe. And so we shouldn't be used as leverage, or we shouldn't be caught up as leverage in this game, political pawn in a game that we can neither control or defend. But we see that kind of impact.
That to me shows the depth of this topic. Like, we started talking about memories at home at the kitchen table, and that immediately takes us to these deep conversations on policy. That's something that is exciting about Indigenous food sovereignty. Is it's deep, it's rich, and I appreciate that you're here with us to share as much of your insight into all that. And it's, I know that you do have a lot going on today. We don't want to keep you. We could probably talk all here. We do have some chocolate as well from
my food sovereignty is I don't like chocolate, so you're good with me. I'll save that for someone else.
Hey, let me ask. I like asking this question on this topic. Can you tell us about your favorite bread?
My favorite bread?
Yes.
Wow. I'm a sucker for bread as a whole, quite frankly. But the homemade sourdough bread, I know I should say fry bread. I feel like I should say fry bread. But, no, it's homemade sourdough bread.
Yeah. You ever go down to Zuni Pueblo? That's where we make our sourdough too.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm down for it. I'll try whatever.
Come through anytime. Thank you so very much.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Appreciate you guys being here and doing what you do.
Have a great, successful conference for the rest of the week.
We're off to a great start. Great comments so far. Almost a record number. Somebody said it is a record number. I think we're right up there, and I don't think we moved registration faster ever, and that's a good thing.
You had a lineup this morning: Deb Holland, former Secretary of the Interior, Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota.
Yeah. We had
Yeah.
we were so
Hey,
fortunate
come on in if you want.
to be in the position where, we had, I think the last time that team updated, we had 100 more requests to present than
Wow.
we had spots. And definitely a good problem to have. When everything's important, it's just hard to have room for it all. We want to continue on that track, but again, it really is indicative of Indian country coming together here to show that unity of our voices, regardless of our differences, and showing Indian country as a whole work together, but also the United States that divide. It's not easy to divide and conquer Indian country.
Well, and one thing I want to say as you were talking, Larry, I thought that a lot of people don't realize this, but organizations such as the National Congress of American Indians, you're working on behalf of the people. So they don't even know what you're working on sometimes. With the policy, with the decision makers in Washington, to tribal influence and defense of tribal sovereignty. You said that this morning is one of the key things. Tribal sovereignty will always fight for that.
Yeah, and I think, I want to kind of reiterate that point too, is that, to your point, NCAI, 82 years, long before I was born. And we'll be
Before I was born too, I'm old, but
be here long after we're gone.
Yes.
And the work that went into this to get this organization to where it is, and it's had its ups and downs, but the strength, is the importance of what it represents, and to carry on the work that's been done before speaks for itself. For anybody, I truly say this a lot, that it's an honor to be in this position to work on behalf of Indian country. And it truly is. I truly mean that. But, as we defend this and we understand, and I've heard other speakers say this, that, sovereignty is consistently under attack. It started, NCAI was created because of the attacks on tribal sovereignty. And the only thing that's happened is the attacks have gotten more sophisticated and they've grown in number. And so that will never stop. But it's not just NCAI; it's the importance. If NCAI was just a monolithic being and we only worked with ourselves, we wouldn't be successful. It is incumbent on NCAI and Indian country to work together. And I think that's one of the important things that the Coalition for Tribal Sovereignty, all of these different organizations that work on their niche areas, but at the end of the day, it's still sovereignty. And working with the intertribal organizations and bringing those collective voices, that collective work together, because there's so much noise going on, so many different areas, to your point, that are under this umbrella of Indian country, that one organization can't fulfill. And the coalition doesn't replace any one organization. It really amplifies the importance of each of us to make sure that we're all trying to help Indian country, and we can be in our own boats, but let's grow together and that continued thought leadership, bringing that together so we don't miss anything. And I think been really proud to be part of that project. The other groups that have come in, the policy people in all of those different areas that come together to work, and ours are right there. And so we know that there's that strength in numbers too. Many hands make light work, and I think that's the work that's being done there.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate
Take
it. Good luck.
care. Take care. Levi, I see these conversations again are just so rich, and we
They
get to
are.
understand the various systems that are coming together. And we're actually going to bring in somebody here from Oregon. We are in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
They're from the Oregon Zoo. Shervin Hess. Shervin, come around and come grab a seat with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, Shervin, I can tell a little bit. They're a conservation manager with the Oregon Zoo. Shervin, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us what work the Oregon Zoo is doing with tribes?
Okay, great. Well, I'm Shaun, the conservation manager at the Oregon Zoo. Essentially, we breed and rear endangered species to reintroduce back into the Pacific Northwest, and a lot of that work is actually led by tribes.
What type of tribes are you working with?
So we have for 20 years bred condors, California condors, for release under the Fish and Wildlife Service recovery plan. And the most recent reintroduction site is in Northern California, right in the Redwoods, and that was the Yurok tribe that established it. So we send condors that we breed down there as part of that reintroduction, and also work with the tribal biologists to kind of get trained in how to handle condors, because as you can imagine, not many places to get trained in condors.
Yeah.
Another one is with the Pacific lamprey. So among the Columbia River tribes, this species holds a cultural significance that's really second only to salmon. So they are struggling to kind of get to their ancestral homelands above the dams. And so we work with them just in storytelling with the public. You know, we have 1.5 million people visiting every year, and get to tell that story of not just the ecology of the Pacific lamprey, but why it matters to the tribes. It's the cultural significance of this really important species.
Levi, you know, I like when you mentioned about the visitors that come to the zoo, because it really highlights what tribes are doing for people who are non-tribal. And Levi, that was so instrumental to this project here at Cultivating Culture. Is, you know, we are talking about food, and we're not really talking about condors as a food source, but how it's all interconnected to various spaces and wildlife and the cultural practices of the people you're working with. But Levi, I want to kind of get your thoughts, and if you have a question here, how it's important for food sovereignty to reach people who are non-native or who are outside our communities.
I really appreciate talking about the dam restoration or restoration of the salmon.
Mhm.
And if you're telling that story, I think that's really important that non-natives know that. Ancestrally, that's what our people, Pacific Northwest, ate, salmon.
Right.
And it's kind of the return of the salmon. I think it's a big movement. And so I'm happy to hear that they're working on that front.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's so we worked with the Pacific lamprey effort. It was interesting because we worked really closely with Yakima, Warm Springs, Umatilla, and Nez Perce tribes to put together also this exhibit at the zoo that shares the story of this animal that a lot of people have no idea what this thing is, right? We really wanted to go beyond sort of this Wikipedia page version of lamprey to really share about why these species are culturally important, you know, a part of this place we always live. And for the folks that we worked with in the tribes, it ended up at the end of this project being one of the most important things to them was the fact that there's 1.5 million people coming to the zoo to look at giraffes and things like that. Also get to see this amazing animal in their backyard that the people there have always known.
Mm-hmm.
And to get to know it through those eyes and that voice too of the people at the Columbia River.
Yeah, that's exciting too, because when this reporting, we hear a lot from people who are working in these spaces across, you know, the United States and Indian country, and they speak with a lot of, you know, affirmation, with a lot of truth, with a lot of, you know, knowledge, sometimes in the face of institutions who either are rejecting it or are slowly coming to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you heard from the tribes you've worked with who see the resources and support from an institution like the zoo and the people who visit it?
Yeah. You know, I think there's been a lot of pride when we put together this exhibit for lamprey, that some of it was co-created by the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission, right? And so to be able to go and see faces of people you know, they're a member of your tribe or their cousin or somebody who lives in your community, it was hugely impactful. That's something we consistently hear from our tribal community that comes like, I know this people. That's up on people who are up on the wall. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The other thing is that I think we try to bring a lot of humility to this work. So another project we work on, the sea otter reintroduction. So sea otters have been missing for Oregon for over 100 years. They were wiped out by the fur trade a century ago. Never came back. They're really important because they eat all the animals that eat kelp. So when you take sea otter out of the equation, all these things like sea urchins will just mow down the entire kelp forest and destroy this entire habitat. And there was a Siletz tribal member named Dave Hatch who had this vision about 20 years ago of like, we should bring them back. Our coastal tribes had a strong relationship with the species, also understand the ecology of them. And what came through in working with them on advocacy to make this happen is that, you know, they had fundamentally understood the linkages between sea otters, the people of the coast, and other species far along we had long before we had words like ecology and stuff like that, you know, so it's amazing. It's a huge honor to be able to kind of elevate and honor the tribal leadership for wildlife, both whether it's condors or bringing Pacific lamprey back to the rivers where they should be, or bringing back this old, you know, family member, the sea otter, back to the coast where it belongs. It really benefits everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to Levi, and this is something that I was excited to learn about, that conservation research leads to other breakthroughs. And something we discussed a little bit off camera was how some of the conservation research has led to information that impacts hunters. Is that something you can share about how that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So with condors, the number one threat to condors is lead poisoning. So condor is a scavenger. It comes along and it eats an animal that had been shot with lead ammunition. That lead will enter its bloodstream and it's deadly. So these are animals that, you know, a hunter may have shot the deer, packed out the meat, but what's left behind, the gut pile in the field, is riddled with lead. So for the past 10 years, we've been running a program really across the country, because this is not just a condor problem, this is an eagle problem too, to help hunters make the switch to lead-free ammunition like copper, because we know it's just as effective. And the difference is that it's not toxic for people and it's not toxic for the scavenging wildlife. So really, we can't just breed condors and keep putting them back out into the world if they're just going to be, we're sending them to their death. We have to address this threat that got them to the brink in the first place.
Native hunters, what kind of response have you received from this research?
It's fascinating, because in this engagement that we have, we're meeting with state agencies, hunting communities, hunting clubs. When we show up, we're to do tribal engagement is where we're seeing a lot of these folks have already adopted lead. Like, they're kind of ahead of the game. Just even here at NCAI, meeting a lot of folks that from Wisconsin to Alaska are saying, well, I'm already using copper, I'm already using lead-free, and trying to learn how they can accelerate in their own communities.
Definitely. And that's important to know. We'll say that clearly one more time for any native hunters who are listening. Lead-free ammunition is the way to go for your hunts.
Yes.
Copper bullets are a great alternative because it's for safe and healthy eating if you're going to use that game for any of your nourishment, which we see still to this day. Yeah.
So I would venture to say most of the audience would have no concept of that. They don't think about the lead in the birds or the animals.
Yeah.
So,
And
thank you for bringing that up.
There too. Yeah.
Correct.
Sure. But is there anything else more you want to share? You know, I know that you're also here at NCAI. What have been the thoughts and reception you've received from people? What are they sharing at your booth?
Oh, it's just a tremendous spirit that people bring to this work, especially when it comes to this intersection with wildlife.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a great unifying thing, wildlife, you know, and for the people for whom wildlife, I've always had such a profound spiritual connection in terms of subsistence, in terms of the central place that wildlife is in their culture. We have a lot to learn. And I think that this thing that we learned about lamprey, connecting our guests at the zoo to that story through the tribal perspective, I'd love to see that to happen for all of our native wildlife. And so people can really get to understand really the meaning behind these animals that are really our relatives.
Yeah, I see the inspiration in your face, and I'm feeling it too. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for coming.
For having me.
Of course, you're very welcome. You take care.
Yeah,
see
thank you. Goodbye.
Levi, I see this again, just another demonstration of the broad topic we have. Well, we want to bring in our next guest. They're also from the region as well.
Yes.
Come grab a seat. And why don't you, when you sit down, introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is John Elise Cleox. I'm the general manager of Yak Nation Farms.
Okay.
And so
Welcome. I'm
great to
Levi
be-
Rickert.
Levi,
Pleasure.
great to be here.
Pleasure.
So I'm just really excited to be here and speak about the Yak Nation's new venture with their farm.
Why don't you share about it and what it is doing
Sure.
to help food sovereignty for
Sure.
Yakima people?
So in 2022, Yakima Nation purchased a legacy farm from a third generation Japanese farm family. It's a 1,500 acre grow, pack, and ship produce farm. And so we do primarily row vegetables. We're certified organic and conventional. So we've got about 500 acres organic vegetables, about 1,000 acres conventional vegetables. So we're growing everything from asparagus, zucchini, watermelon, sweet corn, a variety of winter squashes, hot chilies and peppers. Just a really good variety of what you would see in your grocery store. But we're also trying to now develop and utilize the programs that we've had kind of underlying throughout the Yakima Nation for our health and wellness, our diabetes prevention, our healthy heart work. Utilize the tool that we have to really make sure that we're getting, especially to our elders and our youth, make sure that we're getting them high quality access to organic vegetables, but also reconnecting to where your food comes from. For a lot of people, the disconnect has happened to where we think most of our food comes from the grocery store. Tribal nations are special because we get to actually still go out and practice our culture and go out and gather the foods and medicines that we've traditionally, culturally made us unique. And so being able to reconnect and be like, okay, this is actually where vegetables come from. This is where this happens. But also, it's a really big push for our tribal leadership. One of the big charges that they've given me as the manager of our farm is to make sure that we're walking the walk and talking the talk when it comes to what modern agriculture can be, and make sure that we're walking hand in hand and kind of in lockstep with our natural resources management team for water conservation, for salmon preservation, for habitat restoration. The Yakima Nation has put a lot of work, a lot of time and energy into our salmon recovery efforts here in the Northwest. And so for us to be able to set the bar for our neighbors and work as a unit across the Yakima Nation to be able to stand up and say, this is what we can do. You don't always have to be extractive to the community, to the resources. You can put things back in and have a more equilibrium of produce. So it's something I'm excited to be on the ground floor of. It's really, really humbling to be a part of this. So it's something where I'm learning from both sides of like agriculture folks that have been in the industry for a while, from our marketing folks that have been in the industry in a while, but also from our leadership and our elders that have grown up and been farm workers. So we've gone a big shift and the ability to take those steps from being farm workers, being held out of being agriculturalists on a modern scale, to now that we have this farm, we have this tool that I'm excited to share with our folks in the region to be able to create access for fresh fruit and vegetables and really help create a supporting cast of food entities, especially organic food entities, to help round out plates and make sure that our first foods are still supported and encouraged to have on tables, because we all ultimately have to eat. And having a tool and a resource like this where we can sit at a table and have our feasts, have our celebrations and our ceremonies, and have stuff that's coming from our own Yakima resources and be able to share that with folks is a huge opportunity.
It's just so exciting. I'm just like, I'm kind of like mesmerized by what you're talking. It's just how exciting.
Yeah, you'll have to come take a tour.
I would love that. I would love that.
So.
Do you see that reaction often from people in your community who, like Levi said, are seeing all this maybe sometimes for the first time or interacting with it? What is that like for you?
That keeps me excited. So I think it'd be really easy to just get into it and be really kind of, I only do this every day, but I get to bring people in and reconnect that food and make that connection between our first foods, and I like to call them our second foods, because that's our support cast. And so for me to be able to make that connection, and especially when you have like the big ticket things like corn and watermelon and the squash and stuff like that, where people, it's a connection. Like you can go, I did this with my grandparents.
Sure.
And for us, one of the big things that's been really exciting for me is to see our folks drying corn again. We did several things with the sweet corn that we've got, and we gave it away to the community because we had a cooperative agreement with USDA that we were able to kind of support that cost. And so it was something we didn't take a loss at the farm, but what I saw on social media was the granddaughters and the nieces of the people that we lost during COVID restarting that connection again. So that to me is the win and the connection of what the next generations are
I
going
was
to be able
going
to
to
do.
ask you about that because as you were talking, I was wondering how are you transferring this down to the youth, getting them
Yes.
involved at a young age?
Yeah, a lot of
School
our
age children?
school age children.
Wonderful.
Yeah, most of our staff is under 45. So we've got young folks. Most of our management staff are enrolled tribal members. And then a lot of what we're doing is interaction with our college age students. We do a lot of college age tours. We've been trying to support our students that are going into the trades. And so guys that are going into welding or, HVAC or that kind of type stuff where they want to do commercial applications, we try to house them as much as possible and do those sort of internships. But we've been doing things with our local on reservation schools. And, we go and we'll give pumpkins, or we've been doing a lot of things with farm to school type activities where we're getting our local vegetables in there. And I try to do as many speaking opportunities as possible because it's always fun to walk in and say, well, what do you think a farmer looks like? And 99% of the time they don't say this. So, it's been a really cool thing where the kids are starting to really take pride in seeing the acclimation stickers on things and knowing that's where it's coming from right down the road. And it's not coming from this nebulous store somewhere.
What I like about that, when you get to the youth, you're talking multiple generations because once it gets instilled in them as a way of life, I'm just really excited about this.
On our reservation, we have some pretty good 4-H and FFA programs,
Nice.
And we have a really strong representation with our tribal students in those programs. And so being able to come and as the farm support either from livestock to produce to orchardists, that sort of type thing, and offer that opportunity for the kids to come out and see it's more than just riding around on a tractor. It's more than just picking stuff in the hot sun. There's marketing, there's science, there's chemistry, there's, finance, all of these different things that all are applicable to agriculture. And for the Yakima Reservation, most of our economy is agriculturally driven, but it's just not the tribal folks.
How large
that are
is your
doing that.
tribe?
Our tribe's a little over 11,000 members.
Wow,
so
that's pretty
1.3 million
significant.
acres. Yeah, it's in South Central Washington. So
It's pretty good.
yeah. So we're pretty. I'm excited. It's something where we're still figuring it out. There's a lot that we are trying.
Well, we definitely want to learn more about it and cover it more in Native News Online because we actually just connected last week with one of our representatives, and so I'm really interested in learning much more about it.
Yeah. Anytime you guys want to come out and share any information, we're there.
It's exciting to have the word cultivating in the name of what we're doing here because it really is about growing things. And Levi, what she mentioned here reminded me a lot about our conversations, especially when we were covering the government shutdown and we focused our conversations around food distribution and food programs. And we had already done reporting that demonstrated that tribes were working either in their own systems or with other tribes to manage some of their own food systems in a way that sets some of them up to be prepared to provide food for people who may have lost SNAP benefits. And something you were always asking me about was like, how are the elders doing? How are the elders doing? And I'm curious to know, is there any examples that you can share from Yakima about what the shutdown impact did for your nation and the people that you work with?
Shutdown hit us pretty hard. We have a large contingency of tribal members that are BIA employees. So they were furloughed for those 40 some odd days. We have a high, a high number of folks that are on SNAP benefits within our reservation and within the Yakima Valley. It's one of the highest in Washington State. So we did have a lot of folks that were directly impacted, and we've been, Yakima Nation leadership actually called for a state of emergency. And so Yakima Nation Farms, we've been trying to contribute as much as possible. We're kind of at the end of the season, so we really have winter squash and stuff like that. But we were trying to help coordinate. We're part of the task force for that. But for us, it was a direct, instant impact. And so we've seen our food pantries be impacted. They've got record numbers going through them. And so we're working with a lot of our hunger relief organizations throughout the county and the region, and really trying to work with them to figure out how they can impact the 29 other tribes in the state or utilize their capacity to be able to move things around. So, but that was something where in the past, the coordination with USDA has been key for what we've been doing. So we've been able to get a couple of grants through them to really modernize our facilities, but also be able to increase our local marketing, be able to do things. We're just going to get into a farmer's market. We're going to be able to participate in farmer's markets, but we're also doing things where we're coordinating with our Yakima Nation Wakishmi, which is our diabetes prevention program. every week during our active season, they do free giveaways. And so they're right across the street from our elder facility. So the elders come across and they are our most successful demographic of folks that want to get vegetables and are getting excited about vegetables again because they're not scared of the younger generations, they still kind of look at it as punishment. But older folks, they know how to utilize the vegetables. Our elders are really good at being able to cook things and make things palatable and make it a part of their family's table. And that's been one of the really cool connections of what we've been able to do is create that access and make that a reliable cycle for them. And they've gotten on a cycle. So we have folks that show up every week and they're there and they take what they can use. It's something where we're trying to minimize our food waste, as an industrial complex type thing where we're shipping primarily to grocery stores. There is a large part of what we grow that we don't use for retail. And so figuring out how we can utilize those off-graders, number 2 type things that are farmers market quality, but would more than likely go to a processor or for us, we compost. And so we would use it for compost. But I would much rather it be used throughout the region for its intent and purpose of food, because it's still really awesome stuff. But that's just that step of modernizing our model. Because that farm that we had is over 100 years old. And so it's really been what it's been doing for the last 40 years. And so we're trying to figure out how do we modernize that? How do we give it our influence as tribal people? And how do we start bringing our tribal workers back into the fold?
So is this truly like part of the economic development arm of the tribe?
Yes.
Or is it, okay, that's good to know. Well, thank you very much. Are you
I kind of have one more question.
One more
If that's
question.
okay,
Yeah, sure.
because this is such an opportunity to do shared knowledge. And you said something about, finding pathways to get grants from the USDA. Is there anything you can share from your experience this year about what tribes may be able to do to
Yeah.
have relationships with the USDA?
Our USDA partners have been really, really helpful from the state level to the regional level. From the state level, Washington State's been they have really good representation either through NRCS, FSA, those type things. But the big key for us has been Intertribal Ag Council has really taken a step up to be one of the leaders of helping disseminate information across Indian country. And so their annual meetings next month in Las Vegas, but they have state representation or at least regional representation in every area. And so they're a great network of folks to be able to help. For us, also, the Native American Agriculture Fund has been a big one too. They're really good at disseminating information too. We've been having more regional and local conferences that are dealing with food sovereignty, and the folks from the Native Farm Bill Coalition, they've been super helpful also. And so there's all of these different agencies and organizations that are starting to spring up that are helping Indian country get into more than just with the Forest Service or do things where it's more agriculture. We've gotten more community gardens going. There's been more opportunities for folks to do value-added products. So for food producers that are trying to elevate their game to be able to put things out that are a fancier type, even like Puyallup chocolates. It's one of those things where there's opportunities for USDA to do that sort of things, but there's also opportunities on the feeding side of things to develop nutrition programs, the farm to school, farm to fork, the dipper, those type of things. So a lot of the folks within the state are doing a really excellent job of getting out and creating that sort of informational pathway. But online, if you get onto Intertribal Ag Council, they can usually direct you to your liaisons. NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, they actually have some really good ones. Sometimes the universities, especially land grant universities, will have extension offices and they'll be able to help with that too.
Jonah Lee, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
and
so
sharing
much.
with us. Yes, we'll see you again, and we appreciate the time. Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you guys.
Yes, Levi. Again, this is just such exciting information and
It's
what
all
we're
exciting.
learning about. I think it's dessert time.
Cultivating Culture, coming live from the National Congress of American Indians.
In Seattle, Washington, right?
Seattle, yeah.
But I think it is time for dessert. And I think
think it
that's Tierra Lindbergh is coming in from, we heard about them a little bit earlier, Puyallup chocolates.
Yes.
And I'm learning this is part of the language component where we're learning through food some words and some learning about tribes and the activities that they're doing. Tierra, tell us about it. Tell us about what you do.
Yeah. So my name is Kiara Lindbergh. I'm a Puyallup Tribal member, and I work for Puyallup Tribal Enterprises. It's the economic development arm of the tribe, and so Puyallup Chocolates is one of our ventures.
Chocolate up here. Yeah.
Yeah. We've been going for almost 2 years now.
Okay.
So I take that back. Almost a year.
Oh,
About a
okay.
year.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
brand new.
So
Yeah,
how'd this
brand
come
new.
about? Tell us the origin of the chocolates, please.
Yes.
Everyone's loving them, by the way. You brought a whole bunch for our table, and everyone's
Oh.
stopping by to grab them, and they're like, "I know that chocolate."
I know. He doesn't love chocolate. Well, we bought a chocolate company and kind of rebranded it and really just cast a vision for what a chocolate company could be for the craft. It's been a really great way to even just get our name out there. Maybe you never would have learned how to say Puyallup had you
Puyallup,
not
yes.
heard of Puyallup chocolate.
Well, let me tell you, my business partner, Brian Evers, from Tribal Business News, he's actually runs that side of it. Stop by your office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want to say 8 weeks ago, maybe he was up in Washington State, and we had a tribal economic summit. And Annie from the office sent us. I don't know. We had about 200,
Several hundred, yeah. That was I had him in Michigan for the first time.
and I tell you,
Okay.
it was a hit.
Yeah,
It was
oh,
a
yeah.
hit. So when we knew we were coming to your neighborhood, we thought we're going to reach out, and here
Yeah.
you are. So thank you for coming today.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
And that's what the connections that these, again, food creates. And can you tell us and describe any connections you personally got while working with the chocolate company or any other food opportunities?
Yeah, I've worked a few of our. We've been in a lot of different shows. We've done a lot of different, some like home and garden shows, some more tribal shows, but we've been at a lot of different shows. And it's actually been a really great opportunity to tell people about the Puyallup Tribe.
Yeah.
It's a great segue when people are like, Puyallup, because Puyallup's chocolate city. And so when they're like, I didn't know Puyallup had a chocolate company. And I get to say, actually, it's owned by the Puyallup Tribe. Like, that's where our name comes from. And
Yeah.
so it's been a great, like, segue to be able to talk
And
about.
you have pretty good coverage here in Seattle, because when I was Googling, the Seattle map came up and there's little dots where your candy is being sold here in Seattle.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tribal owned business. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Is there any estimate as to how this is helping in terms of revenue and what you're doing with the tribe just from the chocolate alone?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to just learn a lot of new skills from tribal members. And obviously, like I said, it's one of our enterprises in our economic development. So it's really, it's adding value and all types of things. Like I said,
How big is your tribe? How many members?
I think there's about 6,000.
6,000?
Somewhere.
Pretty good
somewhere in
size.
there. Don't quote
And they're
me on
making
the
chocolate
exact-
now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are.
What are some of the jobs they have that they're learning with the chocolate trade? I never even considered what they have to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's all types of from manufacturing the chocolate, packing it, like, more general labor to in the office and marketing and sales and different things like that. So it's really a great place for job creation. Which in all of our ventures, that's really a goal for us is to
Yeah.
create jobs for
So when you see Puyallup here on this, and I'm learning it, Puyallup,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you get to see, you actually know that people from that tribe are making, that are part of it, that it comes from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome. What other projects and things are you doing over there that are hitting the food space?
Food space, yeah. So we have a restaurant down on the Ruston waterfront, Tacoma. It's
Okay.
called Woven. We launched about a year and a half ago, and so it's been a great way to just have fine dining owned by the Puyallup tribe in a really popular area where a lot of people go, tourists, all the above.
Fine dining, what's on the menu? Tell me.
All types of seafood. It's Woven Seafood and Chop House is the name, and so there's a lot of surf and turf type of options.
Nice.
Yeah,
Woven,
it's really good.
Yeah. All right. What was this? I think you mentioned the chef that you brought in as
Yes,
well. Yeah. Tell me about
Roy,
the chef.
Roy Yamaguchi. He helps create our menu and create our dishes, and so he's a pretty famous chef, I guess.
Okay.
I don't really know a lot about chefs, but apparently he's a chef. And I can attest because the food is really good.
The food is good.
Yeah.
What's your favorite menu item there?
Ooh, honestly, they have a good poke bowl. They have a lot of good salmon. There's stuff on there.
Yeah.
Really good.
We were talking about this earlier with the person from the Oregon Zoo, but this restaurant is another opportunity for people who are not from the community to learn about. What kind of reaction have you gotten from people who are first learning about your tribe?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to Puyallup Talk. It's a really great way to, kind of a segue to get to tell them about who we are as a tribe. And through the chocolate and Woven, we kind of tried to showcase a lot of our values. With Puyallup chocolates, we're known as the generous and welcoming tribe. That's kind of what Puyallup people are known for. And so we try and really put that into our branding of Puyallup chocolates. We're kind of a gifting company. When you see the packaging, you're like, wow, this is so generous. And so that's kind of our vision is to bring what we value as people into our product.
Yeah.
To share that with others.
That's very valuable, I think, at the foundation for a quality business approach.
Yeah.
And, again, back to the shared knowledge aspect of what we're doing here. Do you have anything you'd like to share in terms of best practices or maybe some chocolate to avoid for tribes or, tribal enterprises that are looking to get involved in either restaurant or other food spaces like chocolate?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the topic of just food sovereignty in general, it's kind of, for us, we're in such a urban area, and it's not like we have a lot of our land is commercialized and privately owned, and so I think food sovereignty it's kind of a different take on how can we adapt based on like who we are.
Still retain that sense of sovereignty.
Yeah.
Tribal sovereignty.
And I
Yes.
think a lot of that comes down to taking ownership in the food environment from start to finish. So our chocolate, for example, being able to source from bean to bar, from
Bean to bar?
Yeah,
I like that. Bean to bar. We say seed to table,
Yes,
but bean to
yes.
bar is
Yeah.
good. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
and so sourcing our beans all the way through to making the chocolate. Because
Okay.
no one knows cocoa beans are not the end result of chocolate. It goes through a whole process before it becomes that.
Yeah.
So being able to have ownership over that entirety and being able to choose maybe more indigenous farms that have nuts or fruits or things like that maybe wouldn't be the first choice for a buyer.
So you have different varieties of chocolate.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Annie, I talked to Annie a couple weeks ago. I was quite impressed. I was actually quite impressed with the marketing side of it.
Yeah.
The packaging.
Yeah.
Somebody put some thought into that and it seems to work, right?
Yeah, it's Annie. Annie's a really smart.
It's Annie? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously she would say it's a team effort, but she's really the brain behind the operation.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I just have somebody smart working with you to get it going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Puyallup chocolates. I'm gonna have a box here a little bit later, not
Yeah,
right now.
Or a few.
Oh yes, a couple, few. Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing that,
Oh,
for
yeah,
sharing your
absolutely.
perspective and what Puyallup Tribe is doing. It's another inspiration to what tribal food sovereignty is, and I appreciate your definition with that as well too, because you have unique circumstances, and that's every tribe. Well, thank you so very much for joining
Thank
us.
you
Have a
so much.
wonderful day.
Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
you take care.
Guys.
Wonderful. Oh, Levi.
We're going to spread the news.
You can come here to our table and we'll give you a free chocolate.
That's right.
You can
Come
try
on
it,
over and
walk
see us.
away from home. I might give you two so you can take home to your cousin. Levi, this has been fun.
This has been
We're
fun.
almost at an hour. We're talking about so many things that we spend our time at picking out in our editorial meetings, the stories across Indian country that we want to highlight. And there's so many more of these. And this is just the first one. How do you see Cultivating Culture project grow? And let's talk about it growing in these live stream podcasts. What do you want to see?
Why, as it relates to the live stream, I love the idea we had a variety of guests on today, and I think we can do that more and more conferences and spread the word about our cultivating culture. And what I really like about that is it seems to be the resurgence of who we are as Native people, and it started probably a couple decades ago, at least in my lifetime, but just to see the resurgence of Native culture, it's so important. And people are catching on to this whole notion of Indigenous knowledge, how important it is. So much of Indigenous food sovereignty is, in fact, Indigenous knowledge, and it's how our ancestors lived, how they knew how to farm, they knew how to when to harvest the crop, how to keep it during the winter and into the spring, and then replant. It's just a beautiful cycle, and of course we've been covering some of the restoration of the buffalo. We did a story about the salmon, and I think as time progresses, Shaun, we're just going to find out more and more, and we invite people in the audience, tribal people who have stories to pitch, reach out to us, and we will listen to you. And the beautiful thing, I think, I have been telling people that I've discovered about this project is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So many good things are already happening in Indian country as it relates to cultivating culture, food sovereignty. I think that we get to tell the stories, and that's what we're storytellers as journalists. So I love it.
Yeah. Such an exciting opportunity, Levi, and something that still sticks with me when we started this is that so much of this came out of reporting under COVID, reporting on boarding school issues. You were at every listening session for the Coalition of Healing for National Boarding School Issues, where people were sharing their stories from their experiences with the.
And so these are fun stories.
And that's what this is, right? This is what you're looking into. You're seeing resilience through food.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And it's just, and I really like it when I hear the element that they integrate the youth into the learning process.
Yeah.
Because once you plant those seeds with children and it sticks, you're good for 3 or 4 generations because they're going to pass it on. So that's the exciting thing.
Definitely. And NCAI here has a youth group. And I was up there earlier today and I talked to about 100 of the youth. I asked them, raise your hand if you support Indigenous sovereignty. They all did.
Yeah.
And I asked them, which one of you that raised your hand can give me your definition of an Indigenous food sovereignty? And I swear these people are reading like they know it from the back. Join us and come talk to us about your perspective, as Levi mentioned. Now, one thing we are going to do here, Levi, is we're going to spend a little bit more time here and talk about some of the reporting that we've worked on.
Sure.
And do you want to stick around? And we're going to bring in one of our friends of the show. Antonio Gonzalez is here, another Native American journalist who's at NCAI to cover this. And Antonia is going to come back around and share with us, and we'll have a reporters round
Remember,
table.
we worked with her at the Democratic Convention.
We were in Chicago at the Democratic
Good to see you.
Convention. Hey, Antonia, nice to see you. Yes. So,
Still doing it.
Still
Making it happen. Yeah, that's great. That is wonderful.
what are you seeing at NCAI that you want to share?
Yeah, so the young people from across the country are gathered for the youth convention, which is taking place alongside the annual convention. There's more than 160 young people up there, ages 14 to 24. They're just looking and discussing tribal sovereignty. When I was up there earlier, they were talking about policy making. And I got to talk to a group of TANF students from Sagoba Indian Reservation over here, 8th graders.
That's Arizona, right? Sagoba?
In California.
Oh, California. That's right. I've been there.
And they were
I was on
excited.
the longest walk with Dennis Banks, reversing diabetes. So, yep, I was a little confused, but it was California. You're exactly right.
Well, it's exciting to hear from young people. They're so, they have so much energy. They're so great with technology. I mean, you have a problem with your phone, take it up there. I'm sure someone can fix it. But just looking
They
at
can do
talking
something in
about-
2 minutes. It takes me 20 minutes to fumble around. Yeah.
But also, they're really into leadership and looking at some of the issues. One young woman I talked to in 8th grade says that mental health is something she would like to address in the community and thinking about how language and cultural identity can help play into some of those mental health challenges. And then Mary Kintitla from Unity is here, and she was talking about how Unity is celebrating their 50 years. And of course, they're a Native youth organization. And I was
Very strong.
sharing with her a little what I was hearing from the young people, and she said definitely at their Unity conventions, that's one of the priorities I think people want to talk about. It's mental health.
This summer, I went to Potawatomi gathering, and they had about 600 people at the Potawatomi language conference, and I heard repeatedly that it's life changing once people embrace their language and get back to it. And as one gentleman said, shame on us if we don't learn it, because they beat it out of us at Indian Boarding School. Some of our ancestors tried to, at least. And thankfully, the language is still there. And people told me that they feel more complete as a person. They really check in with their identity as a Native person when you learn the language. So I think this message for all of us out there. I always kind of say there's like two, at least in Michigan where I'm from, maybe 2 generations that they thought it was better. Just go learn English. You'll be okay. You don't need the language, the native language. But thankfully, there's a resurgence. So.
And that's something we're seeing in our reporting going back. And, Antonia, you have experience in reporting on all the topics that we're discussing here. Food sovereignty, how tribes are getting better access or creating access to better foods. Can you share, and, you can talk about reporting from this year, what you've seen in your career on this? How has it grown?
Yeah, food sovereignty. I've been to one of the conferences in Minnesota at Shakopee for one of those nutrition conferences, and it's so exciting, so great. I actually was in Oakland recently and went to go check out the Mapapa's kitchen.
Oh yeah,
it was
Griswold.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, it was
I've been there. That's
awesome.
wonderful.
I figured out how to
ride the train all by myself.
The bar. Okay, good.
And I made it there. I wasn't
She's
sure.
right
Yes.
at the
Right
stop.
at the
Right at the
station.
stop. Yes.
Yeah. And that station, you know.
Go downstairs and there she is. So
I have to
yeah.
ask you, Levi, because you talked to Crystal for one of our cultivating culture
Yeah,
stories.
she gave us a pumpkin recipe that in viewers you can look that up. Crystal Waffle spoke 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Sometime this fall.
What was I mean, why did you? That was your motivation.
Well, I think I just wanted. I reached out to her because I said, "What's your favorite fall recipe?" That's sent me this pumpkin soup recipe. Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to.
Yeah, and those are some of the offerings we want to give to Cultivating Culture is recipes so we can show people this is how you can make some of the food. And the pumpkin recipe was simple. It was 3 or 4 steps. Cut the pumpkin, drizzle the pumpkin, give it a little seasoning, put it in the oven.
Yeah, it was
That simple.
And her food was really good. I got a steak salad.
Okay.
Amazing. They had bison on the
I had
menu,
bison. It was delicious.
fish.
Yes.
You know, when I travel up to Alaska, subsistence, hunting, fishing, gathering, very, very important part of, you know, Alaska Native way of life, and continuing to make sure that those are protected. And that's a huge fight. You know, with the state coming after Lady John's case, trying to protect their hunting, fishing, gathering. You know, I grew up in a family that went hunting. My grandma also was a sheep herder. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah. So, you know, we've always had that fishing and hunting aspect of being just the way we grew up camping. And, but it's a lot different when that's everything you rely on. You
That's
know?
true.
And when I was in Alaska, it was right when the storm devastated the community, the
Oh,
remnant
wow.
of the
Yeah.
typhoon. And people not only lost their homes, but they lost all their subsistence. And they've been hunting and fishing and gathering for the winter. And that happened with another storm in recent years too, where they lost all that. And just the cultural hurt that impacts people, you know, because think about going from a village into Anchorage in the city and not having your traditional food. So we've been working on stories of how communities have provided a lot of that food. And it's just amazing the outpouring of support where people are sending in fish and muktush and, you know, berries and all these things to help the people who were evacuated from the villages because they're in the city eating city.
And like me, you're from New Mexico, but you're often in Alaska. How many times were you there this year?
You know, I've lost count, but I've been going up for more than 20 years. So, you know, of course, I work for Quantic Broadcast Corporation, which is based with our main office in Anchorage, and we have our tribal radio station at KNDA in Anchorage. And so I've been covering the Alaska Federation of Natives Convention for more than 20 years. We do a big broadcast, and also just other, you know, times going up. We recently started covering Native Youth Olympics, and we do a big broadcast of that. And that's really fun to see, you know, the sports aspect of it, but also the culture and language. That's a really fun event. So yeah, it's great. And I have so many friends up there. Thankfully, they're so good to me that I get to bring fish home. So
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You bring back fish
Yes.
into Mexico. All right.
Yeah.
You know, that's great to hear too. And some of the stories that we've developed with Cultivating Culture, we started publishing in June. Back to fish, right? Like one of our very first articles was an interview with Human Health Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And he was taking a visit to some salmon restoration spaces. And we asked him about, one, do you support Indigenous Food Sovereignty, which he did state at the time, and this is earlier in the year. But it's looking at the different systems and the support that he's seeing from his position in the federal government is there. That was one of the stories that we've worked on. We've also done stories about bison restoration and the sort of collective of various groups, whether they're tribal, nonprofit, private, state, federal. There's all these people that are bringing bison. And that's been also a substantial area that we've seen grow. Are you doing any coverage around bison as well too?
Yeah, we've done, you know, talked to different tribes. We visited different tribes too that have different bison programs. I was on Wind River Reservation this summer, and we were able to go and see their bison. That was really neat. That was part of just a series that we're doing on the First Nations Experience Up Next. We've had this about 3-year series looking at different justice issues. We've been doing both radio and television options. And we just aired that story in September from when we were looking at the reentry program and how it was really interesting. Pretty much every single person that program on talked about getting another chance, how difficult it was to come home on a reservation and how these are vital services because a lot of people, there's no federal prison in Wyoming, so they go to out-of-state federal prisons or in-state incarceration, for lesser charges. But they're going in with just the clothes on the back, and then wanting to get out. Like a lot of times, trying to find housing where you can have sober living and not repeat the cycle and then end up back in the justice system. So that's one of the stories we did there. But we did get to tour the bison program, the tribal bison program, and then we went to a state park, and the bison are roaming around. So that was awesome.
You didn't get too close, did you?
No, but they even had their babies, so that was neat to see. So and of course eat some local restaurants that serve bison.
Okay, bison burgers, bison stew. What do you like?
Yeah, I like them all.
Okay.
Have you ever had one that falls off the bone? Like they just roast it all day, and then you get the bison with the bone,
So
and
good.
it just
So good.
falls apart. Yeah.
Levi, we were talking about bison meat in some of our reporting, and there were some kids who were a little bit not accustomed to the flavor and taste of it. Is that something you've also encountered yourself when you're eating it? So I'm like, this isn't really quite beef, but
We're
I
so
like
used
it.
to beef, but yeah.
Yeah,
But what I like about the aspect is getting back to your ancestors' food.
Yeah.
I think that's just important.
so it means more.
Because you mentioned the spiritual side to it, but literally the federal government, killed bison so we would starve to death. Our ancestors in the Great Plains. So when you think about bringing all this back, Indigenous Food Sovereignty, and what it all means, restoration, it's pretty significant. So cultivating culture, it's like, and then a good friend of mine, Burton Warrington, talked about language. He said he doesn't really like that word preservation because when you preserve something, take it and put it up on a shelf. He said, no, we want to use it, normalize it, and to me, that's right where we need to be with all of it, with the food, not just preserving it, but eating healthy, so we get healthier as Native people. And the language, using the language, so we get a sense of who we are.
Yeah.
It's part of our identity.
Definitely. It's such a vital and important resource to share. And, another thing that we came up to that we spent a lot of time with in the past several weeks was federal government shutdown and the impact of food aid that had on people. We did several reports that were following the court cases. It seemed like it ultimately helped get to the end of the federal shutdown with that ending. But it caused all sorts of various complex issues and outcomes and scenarios. We saw tribes like in Blackfeet, utilize natural resources to harvest more buffalo and get bison meat out to people for free, giving it out. And do you have any coverage from SNAP coverage or the government shutdown that you want to share, talk about?
Yeah, we did a lot of coverage too, looking at how tribes were responding and some of the larger tribes, including Cherokee Nation, opening up and providing funding to help cover until the shutdown, and help provide emergency funds for people to go and get food.
Get some of that candy.
Hey, we got a visit here, Jen.
We're live, but we have some candy there. Could take them on.
Yeah, grab a candy. You want to chat about food sovereignty? Give some thoughts. Introduce yourself.
So my colleague is Andrew Burdett. His sister is Valerie Seagrass.
Okay,
So you know who Valerie Seagrass is?
tell our audience because I don't think they may not know.
You don't know who Valerie Seagrass is?
Tell us more.
You'll have to Google her. It's far too much. I'm not qualified to have a conversation about her work,
Okay.
but she is probably Washington State's leading component about food sovereignty.
Okay.
She has a master's degree. She's a nutritionist. I believe she's running her own organization now.
Okay.
A lot to it, but yeah, she's out there. So it's abroad.
When we bring that term up and that concept, that's who you think of immediately. Those people.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm enrolled in Yakima, but I work for the Muckleshoot tribe.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm a Muckleshoot descendant. That's our-
Wonderful.
I appreciate that you came.
And that's the nice thing about being here at the National Congress of American Indians. We can talk to everybody.
I get you guys' prompt every morning.
Wonderful.
I love it.
Keep reading Native news all
Right on.
Thank you so much. Take
Keep it
care.
good. Keep it good.
Yeah, that's part of the live opportunities that we have here, Levi. Is we
Yes.
can just talk with people immediately and directly.
Well, Shaun, I want to tell our viewers that on December 11th, we are going to be out and about, and we're been talking to some indigenous chefs, and we're going to go to a restaurant, and as part of our year-end campaign, and you and I'll be there and doing very similar to what we're doing tonight. So December 11th. So the readers of Native News Online, you'll hear more about it, and we will start advertising on our Native Vidashway as well. And yet to be determined which restaurant, but we kind of have it narrowed down to 2. So
Okay, yeah. So stand by for those details. That's a fun teaser.
yes.
Is there anything you want to share, Antonia? Tell us where people can see your work.
nativenews.net and KMBA.org. We have a lot of great reporting. We're doing a lot of original reporting with our news team at KMBA, continuing to follow storm coverage. One of the recent stories that one of our reporters covered was looking at the school children who got evacuated and how are they going to go to school. And the UFIC language immersion program accepting 70 students off the bat. And a young girl sharing a little bit of her story and just how scary it was to be in the middle of that storm and having her house. There was a house that did float away, and a couple of people that are still missing. But to just have the children that are so resilient, to be able to be children who went through this very scary situation. But are back in school and are learning and are being around other students and having fun and learning the culture and learning the language and keeping that tradition alive. And so that was, we have reports like that on KMBA looking at different aspects of what these people are.
And you're working with another Indigenous reporter named Joseph Lee, who is a friend of Cultivating Culture as well too. We part of our Cultivating Culture project is we're working with other news publications, and that includes High Country News, where we interviewed Joseph Lee about his book. He's Wampanoag. He talked about his heritage and growing up in Wampanoag and understanding how he's defining his Indigenous identity. And food was part of that too, because central to him was mussels, right? Yeah, they go and get mussels in the sea. But you're working with Joseph, right?
Yeah, so Quanic has a collaboration with the Mountain West News Bureau that Joseph is part of, and Native Public Media, and we started a show last December called Our Living Lands, and it's a 5-minute program that I host. Joseph is the editor, and Daniel Spalding is a producer, and we look at different climate issues. And we've had stories about an Indigenous rock band rocking out for the environment to to looking at how horses are being impacted,
Wow.
plants. Books.
Yeah.
A lot of a variety of different topics are featured on that show, and formats was more interview style, so it'll be just one story. So it's the host, I introduce the story, and usually either a reporter or a producer or Daniel Spalding do an interview, and it's stories from the past.
Well, thank you for coming. I, for one, as publisher of Native News Online, love it when we collaborate with other Native news agencies out there, because all together we're still real insignificant. However, we have a big story to tell. It's a wonderful thing when we work in collaboration. So thank you very much for coming.
Levi, appreciate that we're here. I was going to say, do you want to talk about some Native News Online coverage that's outside of Cultivating Culture? You had a thing on Ken Burns, right?
Yeah, I was able to interview Ken Burns last week, and
you interviewed Mr. Burns.
I did, and
excellent.
He was. It's part of his series that is actually going on tonight on PBS. It's a 6-part, 2-hour per episode, 6-part, all week long. Last night was the first night, so it's tonight, and then 4 more. And the American Revolution. And what the coolest thing was, he went in, he wanted to incorporate the Indigenous story into the revolution. And he found it was so rich and so deep that they have, we're part of, I think, 3 segments of that, the Indigenous story. And so it's not just superficial. He worked closely with the Cherokee Film Office, Jen Lauren, and I interviewed her as well. But that's exciting. And we live in an age where there's the sanitation of, they want to sanitize history and take out so-called bad parts of American history. But, you cannot deny what happened to Native people. But it's not to dwell on 500 years of oppression, but it's part of this American history story. And what Mr. Burns did, and I'm pretty excited. And so that was fun to interview him. He's a fun man and brilliant filmmaker. So
Excellent. And people can read that.
it's Native News Online. We have the story. We have the link to the Native Adashkwe that was at the interview, and then of course you can watch the PBS. I'm happy to push it for PBS.
And tell people more about Native Adashkwe. Like that's something that also is another news feature we have on.
Well, it's a weekly live stream that we do every Friday at noon, and we have basically had the who's who of Indian country and other non-native people, but it's one more way of telling the story. And it's our tagline is "Those making news and leading change in Indian country." And that to me is very important.
Give us some examples. Who have you interviewed this month?
Oh, I have interviewed a couple of veterans and boy, I'm trying to think.
You're a busy man.
I'm tired.
Yeah, you're tired. You've been going at it, and I've been asking you all questions, and we're getting close to the end of all this. And I'll share some of my reporting since I was already there. Of course, Cultivating Culture. We have a newsletter that people can sign up now. That goes to their inbox every Tuesday and Thursday, where I write a little bit of nice information that kind of contextualizes where we are with the Indigenous food spaces and language programs, plus links to articles that we're reporting on through our reporters at Native News Online. We'll have a post to this video where people can watch it and catch on to it, plus any future stuff that we have. One thing we're going to be working on into the upcoming week where we all get together for Turkey Day. Through High Country News, we published a feature on Navajo Puerto Rican ballet dancer named Jock Soto. They're in the New York City Ballet Hall of Fame. They live in New Mexico. We were actually born at the same hospital, Gallup Indian Hospital, which was a fascinating surprise because this person I had no idea about. Lived in New York, classically trained ballet dancer. They also wrote a cookbook. So we're going to get some recipes on them that are going to be part of what that cookbook process is for maybe some dishes you might serve on Turkey Day. Something we learned about Jock in the feature is he was named as People Magazine's like sexiest people alive.
Oh, really?
And and Antonio, that's just somebody from our hometown. Like we didn't even. And where some of the things we're learning to understand where these spaces are. So we'll be sharing some of the recipes from Jock's cookbook that you can read and hopefully make some good recipes on it. And then we have another issue for High Country News in December where we're going to be publishing an article about NCAI and the efforts it did to lobby Congress this year, while also integrating itself ahead for tribes to be prepared for the government shutdown and some of the responses that we saw. Things people are talking about here, and that's the coverage and reporting that we're staying ahead on. One other thing we're looking at with Cultivating Culture specifically is about wild rice. That's something that is to the heart of where Levi is culturally rooted at in his foundation. The Menominee is there, and that's something that we'll also continue to report on. And with that, I think we can wrap it up. What do you think?
I think we can
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody for joining us. And of course, check out all of our news, Native News Online. You can check it over at Kiwanis Broadcasting on your radio. And we hope to see you all again. Thank you.